Okay, good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I am Joanna Goldfarb. I am the Sustainability Innovation Consultant here at the Rambo-Ketska Library System. Today, we are going to go over the RCLS Sustainable Libraries Initiative certification presentation. So this is what we did to earn our certification through the Sustainable Libraries Initiative. If you have any questions throughout the presentation, please feel free to put them in the chat and I will answer them towards the end of the presentation. Also, a reminder that this unfortunately does not meet the requirements for continuing education. So this is simply an informational presentation, but we cannot provide continuing education for it. With that, let's get started. So RCLS became certified as sustainable in October of 2024, so it's brand new. This presentation was created as part of that certification process. So these slides are actually already available to you if you wish to access them. They are on the RCLS website on the sustainability page, as well as the Sustainable Libraries Initiative website. So just a little bit about the Sustainable Libraries Certification Program, just so we are all on the same page. So for this process, we had to complete quite a few, they call them action items. These items fall within a number of categories, and that's what you see on the screen. So within each category, each section of action items, there's a mix of required actions, and those are, of course, items that are required to be certified within reason, and also recommended actions. So for the recommended actions, there's a minimum number that have to be completed, and it's different for every section, but we get to pick and choose which of those action items work best for our CLS. Just a little bit about RCLS. Again, this was for our certification program, so it was for people who did not necessarily know RCLS as well as all of you do. All right, so getting started. This is a section that when we first started this process, we pretty much did it together. It was a way for us to really ease into the certification process, learn how we were going to tackle this program. Also, some of the action items in this first getting started section, we were able to use that information in later sections. So that was really helpful. Here are a few pictures of our waste audit. If you have not done a waste audit, it is lovingly known as digging through the trash. It might sound a little intimidating, a little gross, but it was fine. We did it on a nice day. We went outside, which I definitely recommend. And we were able to measure how much waste we had produced, how much was properly disposed of. So should this item go into the trash or should it have gone into the recycling? And also, what could we actually just take out of the trash and reuse? So we were doing pretty well. We were keeping Dunkin' Donuts in business. I guess we drank a lot of coffee, but that was one of the items in our getting started section. There were also a number of policies that we had to either create or update, including the sustainability policy. We have a procurement or purchasing policy. We had to add a sustainability statement into job descriptions, and also put a sustainability section on the RCLS website. And I will repeat this, but if anyone wants to see our policies that we created for this certification, send me an email and I will send those policies your way, especially if you are trying to update your own. You do not have to start from scratch. All right, indoor and outdoor spaces. So for the certification program, these are actually two separate sections. We had to create a site management plan. So that includes things like how we remove invasive plants, prioritizing native plants. It covers how we use chemicals such as pesticides and herbicides. So anything that has to do with the outdoor space. We did start with a template and then fitted that template to our needs. When I say that, I mean this template had anything that you could have outdoors, like a swimming pool or a fountain, and we do not have a swimming pool or a fountain, so we were able to take those sections out. In addition to that site management plan for outdoor spaces, we also had to create an indoor air quality plan. Why is indoor air quality so important? Because we spend about 90% of our time indoors, according to the Environmental Protection Agency. So we want to make sure that that indoor air that we are breathing is nice and clean. So that indoor air quality plan includes things like how often we check, clean, or replace filters. It covers things like use of indoor plants to filter the air, and we have quite a few indoor plants in RCLS. Some items that we could not do in these two sections, indoor and outdoor spaces. One of the recommended items is making sure that all staff have a daylight view or can have a flexible workstation so that they can move to an area with a daylight view for part of their shift. The way that our building is situated, we just weren't able to do that. Also, we looked into CSA programs so that staff could have access to fresh fruits and vegetables, but I found that a lot of the local programs would not work with us because we just don't have a large enough staff and we couldn't guarantee enough buy-in. So this is an example of an action item that we attempted. We looked into it and it just wouldn't work for us. So we were still able to submit that action item, but we just said we tried and we just couldn't do it. And that's perfectly fine. As long as you are making your best effort to complete that action item, for whatever reason you can't do it and it's out of your control, that's okay. The program is designed to kind of hopefully not be stressful for you. So you don't have to jump through flaming hoops to do something that is seemingly impossible. Next up, transportation. So we have a fleet of vehicles. You probably do not have a fleet of vehicles at your library. This was good timing because we knew that we needed a new vehicle for consultants to travel to libraries and travel to different continuing education opportunities. So since we needed this vehicle anyway, it seemed like a good idea to lease an electric vehicle. So if an RCLS person has visited your library recently, we might have showed up in this Chevy Bolt. We have also switched from our delivery vans from diesel to gas as gas has become more efficient, and Chuck, our delivery manager, has been keeping up with the technology. Right now, fully electric delivery vans don't fit our needs. They don't fit our range. So since they don't work for us at the moment, we're not going to use them. But should the technology ever get to where we need it to be, we are willing and able to make that change. Also, we have tried to incorporate a few things for libraries and patrons throughout this certification process, and that's where this Library by Trail map has come in. If anyone would like to check it out, it is on the sustainability page of our website, and it has some maps with rail trails in our area and which libraries are along those rail trails. So if anyone uses the maps to I don't know, ride their bike to all the different libraries, let me know. A few other items about transportation. Um, there were some items that we already had in place, things like we have a no idling policy. We do have a work from home policy so that staff, if they're able to, can work from home 2 days a week. Also in our travel policy, we do encourage staff who are visiting member libraries to leave from wherever is closer for them. So for example, if I am going to a library in Rockland County, I live closer to Rockland County, so I would not first come up to Middletown and then drive down to Rockland. I would just go straight to Rockland. Um, so these are just a few ways that we can reduce our carbon emissions. We do also purchase carbon offsets because, again, we are not carbon neutral. We have chosen to purchase our carbon offsets from the Finger Lake Climate Fund. It is relatively local. And again, some items we were not able to complete or they were not right for us. So within the transportation section, a few items that might be very relevant for libraries, but were not relevant for us were things like a bike rack or a bike repair station. We do not really we do not work in a bike friendly area. Um, so we wouldn't necessarily encourage staff to ride their bike to work. So for that reason, we also did not install a bike rack because if we're not encouraging people to bike to work, why would we install that bike rack? So that's another item that we considered. We looked at the pros and cons. We decided not to go with anything regarding biking. Those were recommended items. So we still submitted them and said, we are not doing this and here's why. Okay, moving on to energy and water use. A lot of the items in this section we had already done before starting the certification process. So with that being said, if your library is already doing something, you can still submit those items. In fact, when we were working towards this, some of the first advice we received was pick the low-hanging fruit. Go through, look at what you are already doing, and document those items. It makes this entire process a lot more manageable. It's quite encouraging actually to see, all right, this is what we've already done. We're already off to a good start. So some of the things that we had done to become more efficient way before starting this process. In 2018, RCLS installed LED lighting all around the building. We already had solar panels that had been in place since 2008. There were already things like insulated pipes. Our thermostats were set to appropriate temperatures. Also regarding water, a lot of the action items had to do with an irrigation system. And RCLS actually does not have an irrigation system. We just don't water our plants. This kind of caused an unexpected road bump because so many of the recommended items had to do with making sure that your irrigation system is up to date, it's not leaking, it's adjusted to appropriate levels, but we couldn't do any of those because we don't have an irrigation system. So we ended up being able to do the other recommended items. If not, then we would have had just keep submitting. We don't have an irrigation system. This does not apply. So I'm going to give you an example of a work smarter, not harder. One of the action items is to make sure there are appropriate light levels throughout your building. So we checked the light levels. A lot of the office spaces were too bright for an office setting. So what do I mean by that? If you go online, there is a list of appropriate light levels for different settings. So in office setting, there is a library setting. There are things like medical laboratory settings, and most of our offices were appropriate light levels for a medical laboratory. Um, if someone likes that, we're not going to change their office. I don't want anyone to be uncomfortable or unhappy in their space. But for folks who are said, you know what, it is pretty bright in here. You don't have to go out and buy new light bulbs. One solution, if you have multiple bulbs, is just to unscrew one. That makes the room a little dimmer. Also, for instance, in my office, we have two switches, so we just only turn one switch on. And now we have an appropriate light level. So again, you don't have to go totally crazy with this. You just have to make it work for you. Okay, program materials. So this is one where RCLS staff were really gung-ho. We had completed 14 recommended actions, and we only had to complete 8 recommended actions, which is, I think, fantastic. The business office had a lot to do with this because we do all of our ordering through the business office. They were fantastic. We had a group of staff clean out our supply closet and make an inventory so that we knew actually what we already had and what we really needed. We had kind of everyone on staff started making small changes. Those changes, it depends on what works for you and what works for your workflow. But any little small change in reducing waste, it just leads to a bigger impact. We started purchasing more environmentally conscious materials for giveaways for staff supplies within reason. So what do I mean by within reason? So it depends on the price, because if something is way out of our price range, even if it's more environmentally conscious, we can't necessarily purchase that. So again, all of these action items, all of these tasks, you do it to the best of your ability, to the best of your budget. Other things that the business office had done, again, before we started this program, they had already drastically reduced the amount of paper used. So if I remember correctly, there used to be paper purchases every year, and I can't actually remember the last time we had a paper shipment come in. Because that's just how much that paper has been reduced. We did also switch to newsletters, electronic newsletters, for things that used to be mailed out, such as the trustee FYI, to keep trustees up to date on RCLS goings on. Also, kind of a bonus for the libraries, for the ILS receipts. In our Symphony, when we had Symphony, we could not turn off the receipts. So patrons had to get a receipt whenever they were checking out a book. But now patrons have the option of not receiving a receipt. So that's a way that libraries can reduce waste. It's individual to each patron now. So you can ask, would you like receipt? Yes or no, and then print it accordingly. More materials because we did so much. I think one of the biggest hits that I can remember was we started purchasing coffee from a local vendor, as opposed to kind of Folgers or whatever was on sale. We have a little quote, an email that I received from a staff person that it made their workday so much better. We were purchasing our coffee from Java Love. Unfortunately, the location that we were purchasing from closed. So now we are getting our coffee from Valkyrie Coffee in Chester. And this is really nice because the vendor, the coffee shop owner, when I have ordered more coffee, he'll ask, what did the staff like? What did they not like? We usually get more than one roast to try out different flavors, and he can recommend another roast flavor based on our preferences and our budget. Also, it's on my way to work, so I could just stop in and pick it up. So there is less of a carbon footprint because there's not an extra delivery trip. A few other things that we did is we worked with Orange County government to start compost drop-offs at different farmers markets in Orange County. So we were able to help them build up this program. It was really exciting. We spent a lot of time at a farmers market in Newburgh and the farmers market in Goshen. So it was nice to see, especially the Newburgh market. This was the first year they had drop-offs, to see throughout the course of the summer how many people were dropping off compost to start versus the end of the summer, when we had educated a lot of the community members and they were just used to bringing their compost every week to drop it off. We do also have a compost here at RCLS. I did also pick up a travel compost. So if an RCLS staff member hosts a session at a library and the library doesn't have a compost, we could bring our travel compost bin. For materials, we have still been keeping an eye on our waste. We are still kind of keeping Dunkin' in business, not as much, but we are trying to go for progress rather than perfection. So we have definitely cut down on the number of Dunkin' cups, but sometimes it's really nice just to have someone else make your coffee, and that's okay. Collective impact. So this includes partnerships with the community, including for-profit partnerships, nonprofit partnerships, partnerships with government entities. For our nonprofit, we have partnerships. We have worked with different nonprofit organizations throughout the system, things like Sylvan 180. We've worked with the Red Cross. We were hosting blood drives at RCLS for a while. The for-profit partnership, this was one of the items that we were kind of overthinking. And that is where our mentors, one of the times our mentors came in handy. So it turns out we already had for-profit partnerships. We work with local restaurants to provide food for continuing education sessions, excuse me, as well as our board meetings. So we're purchasing from local businesses rather than, like a Panera to get sandwiches for everyone. So that counted as our for-profit partnership. And then after that, once we started purchasing coffee from the local vendor, that was another for-profit partnership. Social cohesion. So this is something that all staff were involved in. We had a full staff training, where one of the items that we went over was a session on microaggressions. Also, some of you may have taken part in a 6-part training on equity, diversity, and inclusion that was open to all RCLS member library staff, and RCLS staff also participated. That ran for a few sessions, and we tried to have as many RCLS staff participate as possible. Something that happened as a result of that is we now do double-blind job applications. So what does that mean? That means that when someone submits their resume and cover letter, it goes to someone who is not involved in the hiring process, and they remove as much identifying information as possible. So name, address, um, anything that could be removed without, taking away from the application. So that way, when we're reviewing, we don't have any bias. We also updated our trustee recruitment process. So every board member, the new updated process reads, and again, I can send this to anyone if they are interested in having this written down to see what the board approved. But it reads, every board member is charged with finding a replacement before their term ends, with the understanding that their goal is to encourage the diversity of people, skills, cultures, and backgrounds among its members to flourish. So we felt that it was important for our board to represent our service area. So that's why that was important for us to update. We also have offered continuing education sessions about serving diverse populations. So things like diverse picture books, how to use pronouns and why to use pronouns. Memory care for older adults was recently offered. Sessions on serving unhoused populations through Niche Academy, which everyone has access to. I do also want to point out that these are topics for every department, every staff member. They were organized not only by me, but by other RCLS staff members. So this initiative is really an everyone project. It impacts every department. It can be contributed to by every department. So keep that in mind as if you are pursuing your own certification. This is not a one-person job. This is really an example of how this is a team, a group effort. Last, for social cohesion, have fun, do something fun. We decided to recognize staff who volunteer outside of work. We did that at our holiday party. And anyone who submitted their volunteer work, they got a nice gift card to Adams. Next up is resilience planning. So what is resilience? It's being prepared for different disasters that might come your way. Making sure that you are able to first minimize any damage from various disasters, and also setting yourself up for a quicker recovery. Something that RCLS did is, again, during a full staff training day, we have an active shooter training, as well as training on how to properly use a fire extinguisher. Something that seems basic, but if you don't know, how would you know? Something that we still need to work on. We do have a safety and loss prevention policy. It is very out of date. So for the certification, we submitted that out of date policy, but the board had committed to updating it in 2025. So again, for this process, you don't necessarily have to have everything 100% done, especially if something that you want to do involves construction and you're just not ready to do that construction quite yet. But you have to show that you are committed to completing those items when the library is able. So the board is committed to updating that policy in 2025. A few of the other action items we completed for resilience planning, they really, I hope that they've benefited member libraries. So things like continuing education on sustainability issues. So we had environmental justice. We had a session on using native plants in library landscaping. This poster is for a 4-part series that we partnered with Mid-Hudson Library System on how libraries can be resilience hubs. And if anyone is interested in these sessions, 2 of them were recorded. 2 of them were in person, but those slides were saved, and all of that information is again available on the RCLS website on the sustainability page. We also hosted a book repair workshop somewhat recently, for member libraries. And if you or a staff member were at a book repair workshop, you can use those skills during a repair cafe. If your patrons are always asking, like, my book is broken, how do I fix it? Why not use those skills in addition for fixing library books? Also, we recently offered a mini grant on community resilience, and 9 libraries received those funds. So some of those programs that they created, a few libraries did program series on how to save food, on cooking, on reducing waste. We had a library set up a room for mothers to breastfeed their children in private, along with resources for parents. We had a library create care packages for the unhoused population to make sure that they had hats and gloves and scarves, different hygiene products. It was wonderful to see what libraries came up with. So, financial sustainability. This was a big one. I have to brag a little bit. RCLS had done all of the recommended, and we had enough. We had all of the required actions, and we had enough recommended items that we didn't have to make any changes. Stephen, our fiscal officer, is here, so I'm going to let him talk about this because he's the financial guru.
Well, good morning, everybody. As Joanna just said, my name is Stephen Hofer, and I'm the Chief Financial Officer of the Ramapo Catskill Library System. Joanna asked me to share just a few words about RCLS financial sustainability. And so starting with the first bullet point on the slide, it talks about the RCLS annual service fee. So really, what is this? It's a funding mechanism, and that's important for it serves as a critical mechanism for increasing funding when necessary. Currently, that service fee is $127,800 across 47 libraries, but we're fortunate that we've only had to increase this fee, I think maybe 4 times, maybe 5 since its implementation 12 years ago. So financial stability has been a part of RCLS's approach now for decades. And again, this is important because we can't raise taxes and we're dependent on state aid. So this becomes a relief valve if should the need arise, but fortunately it hasn't arisen much. So the second bullet point talks about really long-term financial sustainability. And so we have cash flow reserves that we talk about of $1.4 million. And again, that was introduced around a decade ago. And that really provides long-term financial stability, allowing us to have enough cash between January 1st and when we get our state aid in July or August. If we had to borrow money, that would increase your expenses and decrease your ability to provide services. That bullet point also talks about several reserve funds and 15 or so, but several of those are designated for the 47 member libraries benefits. And so this long-term financial planning, it not only helps to ensure the system sustainability, but it also reaches out to the 47 member libraries and provides them with a financial sustainability long-term. And then the last bullet point, talking about employee benefits, really employee benefits help to provide longevity and create a culture here at RCLS. The culture of longevity has really impressed me over the years. I've been here for 11 years. My predecessor, Brenda, was 25 years. Currently, Chuck from head of maintenance, I think, is at 35 years. Of course, you all remember Jerry. He was 38 years. If you remember Diane Bianti, she was 36 years. I think the longest serving person was Carol Martin at 43 years. So that's a lot of institutional history and knowledge and experience that brings to bear for our member libraries. So, and also, I mean, it's just not just the finances, as Joanna mentioned, the flexible remote work schedule, the initiatives like equity, diversity, inclusion, and of course, we have to give a shout out, I think, to our executive director, Grace Riario, for her unwavering support of the staff. So her leadership, she has continued to cultivate an environment of emotional sustainability through COVID and some difficult times. So, but I will tell you about the process when it came to achieving financial certification. RCLS was already pretty well positioned, and a lot of that was thanks to Robert Hufscher from many, many years ago. So we've been able to maintain those levels of financial responsibility. And so the process really primarily involved documenting practices that were already in place. And of course, supporting Joanna with lots of data and information and time. So I just will give a shout out to Joanna because we could not have achieved this certification without Joanna taking the lead. So it's advisable that you have one person to take the lead and rally the troops. So thank you, Joanna.
Thank you, Stephen. I'm blushing. And now I want to give like more of a shout out to the business office, because when I say that a lot of things were done, I don't only mean in financial sustainability. A lot of this process is also documenting things like our fuel use for not only the vans, but also how much gas do we use to heat the building? How much electricity do we need to light the building? And RCLS has been documenting that for quite some time, not only through the bills, but actually keeping a spreadsheet year after year of all that information. So that was extremely helpful to already have and not have to create. And that is the work of the business office. All right, continuing education. So this is probably where you at the libraries have seen us the most of what we have done. So I had already mentioned a few of the sessions that we have offered over the past couple of years. I am doing my best to keep the sustainability page of the website up to date. But we have also been trying to highlight what you are doing. So we typically do that through social media, Facebook and Instagram and X. So these are just a few of the items that we have highlighted. But if you are doing something on social media or doing a program and you would like us to share it, let us know. Um, we like seeing what you're doing. Um, Also, just a heads up, if anyone needs trustee training or staff training on sustainability, feel free to reach out. I'm happy to go to your library and talk to everyone about sustainability. And we are putting together the trustee training calendar, which will be up soon. And there will be a sustainability session or two available for the RCLS trustee training. So just a few highlights. Um, One of my favorite things was when staff would come up to me and they would say, over the weekend, I did this thing. And it was, something that they had started doing that was more sustainable in their life. So what we learned and implemented here at work, it went into people's personal lives too. So now we're just all trying to be a little bit more conscious of what we're doing all the time. Um, and that's kind of, I think, one of the points of this process is that you are going to think about what you're doing, how you're running your library, the programs, the services, but how can you just do that more sustainably? So how can you make small changes to be a little bit more sustainable? You don't have to completely reinvent what you're doing and how you're doing it. It's just you have to make this decision. You have to buy paper anyway. Can you buy paper that is recycled or that is 50% recycled or 30% recycled? So doing things you're going to do anyway, but in a more sustainable way. We did also try to incorporate sustainable practices into our annual meeting. So this lovely photo is one of the centerpieces from not this year's meeting, last year's meeting. This year we gave away compost bins. It was very glamorous, but it was fun to see a library staff member who was really eyeing the centerpiece because she definitely wanted it. Um, we have also, again, updated a lot of our policies and a lot of our procedures. And again, if you would like to see them, shoot me an email. I will send them your way so you don't have to start from scratch. With that being said, if you are considering becoming more sustainable, uh, make sure that your trustees are on board because it does involve work for them too, because they're the ones who had to review and approve all of these updated policies. We have a few libraries who are going through the Sustainable Libraries Initiative certification process now, as well as two libraries that are already certified. Haverstraw is certified and Mammoth-Keating is certified. Um, it's they were certified before we were, and it's especially exciting because they are two different, very different libraries, very different sizes, very different communities, and they were able to do this process in their own way that made sense for them. And I'm excited to see what all these other libraries who are in the process of becoming certified are going to come up with. So just because we are certified doesn't mean we are done, because we are never done. Sustainability is a forever thing. So we will continue to, evaluate our practices, see where we can, materials are our favorite, see where we can cut, where it's possible to cut, to make sure that in all of the areas that we just went over, we are doing the best we can, and making the best decisions for our organization. Um, of course, we have some more continuing education opportunities coming up. Um, you can sign up right now for The World is Ending, Why Bother? And that's taking place on January 13th. In February, there will be a program on how to start a bike share program if you're interested in loaning out bikes for a community. Registration is not open for that yet, but it will open up in January, so keep an eye out for that. Um, Also, of course, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out at any time. With that, I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And if anyone has questions about our certification process, we can open up the floor. You can either put your questions in the chat, or if you'd rather unmute, I think we're a small enough group that you can just unmute. I see a question in the chat now, so I'm going to tackle that first. A slide mentioned a first attempt at a pollinator garden, which was unsuccessful. Will another attempt be made? A pollinator garden is very important to the environment. Yes, so that first attempt, we had received seeds for native plants. We didn't quite know where we wanted to put a pollinator garden, so we decided to start them in pots first. And then once we had figured it out, we could then plant them. But the plants became a snack for some deer. Uh, so we have continued to discuss a pollinator garden, but we have decided that if we do that, we need a fence because the deer will just continue to snack on the native flowers. So first we need a fence, but then yes, we would still like a pollinator garden. I see, the three dots, like someone is typing in the chat. So keep typing. Yes, the deer do need to eat too. But, I wish they would eat, they never eat the weeds. They only eat the flowers. And I'll give another moment if someone wants to type a question in the chat, or again, feel free to unmute and just ask your question. And thank you, Claudia, for the congratulations. Okay, well, hearing no questions, we can end it there. Again, if you think of something else that you'd like to ask, send an email. We're here. Um, sorry, I got distracted. There's someone's typing. So we'll just give it another minute. Okay. Thank you, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your day. And I hope everyone has a happy holiday season. Bye, everyone.